This is Trevor, and welcome back to our weekly tarot card challenge. We've been working through the Rider-Waite Tarot deck, and you can find the videos for the cards that we've covered already here on this YouTube channel or on my website at trevorsense.com. That's also where you'll find information about booking appointments with me, whether that's live here in person in Winnipeg, and I'm presently reading through Elemental Book and Curiosity Shop, as well as a little bit of group work where I'm getting out and about to some other places. Also, there is the aspect of distant reading, and that's something that I've explored very carefully for quite a while before offering it publicly, and that's over Skype. And I'm finding that that's working very well, and it's great for some of my clients who've moved away, as well as their friends that they've wanted to refer me to. So that again is on my website at trevorsense.com. Now, as I said, we've been working through the Rider deck, and I've set aside the cards that we've covered already, and I'm shuffling the cards. And I like to mention too here that these are just random thoughts on the cards. There's so much involved in card interpretation, and if you're studying tarot, I really encourage you to work with your own interpretations as well as study. Now, I'm an intuitive reader, so there's oftentimes things I pick up without the cards, and people say, well, why do you need the cards? I like working with tarot because it's a system, and I see it as a symbolic language. So you build your own associations with the cards over time. But the wonderful thing is you also have the opportunity to study what other people have interpreted. And there's some really strong common themes that you start to notice over time. As well, tarot works really well with associated systems, excuse me, such as astrology, there's numerology, there's so many other aspects that tie into the cards. And by being open to those interpretations, you build on your own repertoire. So again, these are just my random thoughts. These are some of the things that I've encountered with the cards over the good many years I've been working with them, but they are by no means the definitive be-all and end-all. This is just really off the top of my head giving you some of my experience and what I'm seeing in relation to the cards. But that also works off of what I'm feeling intuitively for the person. So it's interesting to kind of go with your intuitive impressions first, and then to kind of see what the cards have to say. And oftentimes you'll see where they agree or where the cards are giving some additional insight. So I'm shuffling the cards, and I always cut them. That's just traditional for me. And we have the Queen of Wands. All right, now I've mentioned before, and I believe we had the Queen of Swords, that the court cards, Page, Knight, Queen, and King, are part of the minor arcana. But they're also in sort of a class unto themselves. They're the cards that can be used most often to describe people. And we also can look at them as being kind of a mode that things are in. So I oftentimes see a court card not just as a person that may be influential in the person's life that I'm reading for, but also in some ways kind of like a gear that things are operating in. And queens have to do with a sense of receptivity and to a degree nurture. They have an authority all their own. You know, much as we can see a paternal influence or a patriarchal influence in the kings, there is a maternal or matriarchal influence that has to do with the queens. This doesn't always just have to do with men and women, and it doesn't have to do with gender, and it doesn't have to do with orientation. It has to do with a kind of inflection. And again, that's something that as a reader, you're interpreting. But let's get into the card itself. Right? And now, the Rider deck is so rich in terms of its symbolism and its illustration. Pamela Coleman Smith, the artist that Arthur Edward Waite commissioned, was truly a gifted illustrator. There are other decks that some people feel are more artistically pleasing, but in its illustration, the Rider deck is quite specific. Let's look at some of the symbols that are surrounding the Queen. There's the lions that are on either side of the throne that she's sitting on. There's the little black cat at her feet, looking a little mischievous. There is the wand itself. In some decks, they're called staves or staves. And in playing cards, it relates to the suit of clubs. Now, the other important symbol that the Queen has is the sunflower. And the sunflower comes up at another point in the cards, actually in the major arcana. In the sun card, we see sunflowers. And here in Manitoba, we have sunflowers on farms. And if you have ever watched sunflowers, and you have to watch them, the interesting thing is that they turn throughout the day. They face the sun. So in tarot symbolism, the sun card is about this beautiful sense of things being out in the open, nothing being hidden, everything being out in the light of day. It's a card of great honesty, and it's oftentimes seen as a very optimistic card. But sometimes what we have to go through in order to bring that honesty forward can be quite challenging. Standing in the bold light of day with nothing being hidden can be a little scary at first. And the Queen of Wands seems to be somebody who's got a handle on that. And now the little black cat at her feet can symbolize instinct and intuition. And the wand talks a lot about constructiveness. Wands are the suit of doing. They oftentimes get associated with work, but they don't just have to do with our job situation. They oftentimes have to do with what we are working on constructively. Oftentimes, I think in relationships, we see all four of the elements in the tarot being present. We have to do, feel, fight, and own. And some relationships have a stronger predominance than others. And people oftentimes have a leading element. So I think of her as the queen of doing. There's a sense of constructiveness that comes through about her. And that little black cat at her feet, well, I think that that's an interesting message for readers and people who are working intuitively. That our instincts and our intuition is important, but it has to be used constructively, and it has to be balanced with self-honesty. Sometimes when that's out of whack, we might be picking up a lot of things intuitively about other people. But what does it resonate within ourselves? There's an ancient kind of rule that I like to remember. It goes far back in time to my days on the playground. That sometimes when we're picking up something stinky, the rule is, who smelt it, dealt it. If I'm picking up on a lot of negativity in a situation, sometimes I have to be aware of the buttons that are being pushed, the things within myself that might be resonating. They often say that what irritates us in others sometimes is an aspect we have sitting in our blind spot. So the Queen of Wands is somebody who's got that balance. Now, there's times where that might get a little out of whack, and this brings up the topic of reversals, when a card is reversed. I personally don't always pay so much attention to a reversal as how the cards are working off of one another. But we could see it as if the instincts and the intuition are just running around and we're not looking at our own stuff. That's somebody who's oftentimes, kind of picking up on qualities about other people, but not being aware on their own level. Another rule that I've encountered in my life experience is when we're working initially with a new form of insight, that we have to remember to balance it. Have you ever dated a first-year psych student? Everything has to do with the issues that they're learning about. And that's fine, but there has to be that kind of balance. There's a point where we have to kind of look at those things and work with them constructively. So that's just a few insights around the Queen of Wands card. Usually she's a constructive leader, somebody that we can kind of bring things to and we'll get some honest and constructive feedback. And there is the sense of instinct and intuition, but it's balanced by that sense of self-honesty. Personally, the sunflower is a powerful symbol for me, something that I oftentimes kind of like to have around, whether it's in the artwork that I have in my home. You'll find sunflowers sometimes around me in interesting ways. So again, random thoughts, and I value your comments. So by all means, you can visit the Facebook page for Trevor Psychic Intuitive. That link's also off of my website at trevorsense.com. So we'll look forward to seeing you next week, and hope everybody is having some sunshine, and along with it, that clarity, that sense of being open and being constructive. Take care. Bye for now.